Trent Brunker. Just essentially want to tell my story a little bit more. I've been super fortunate to work with so many players, both in Appleton, where I'm from, and here in Madison, and just kind of excited to share my story with other people, just because I feel like it is kind of a unique story, and I'm doing something kind of unique for a living as well as a hobby, and so super excited to share it with you. I know it's kind of weird. I'm making like a mini documentary during like the middle of my training career, or even like early on in my training career, as I just graduated college. But yeah, more or less want to share what I've been up to, and hopefully it can kind of impact and positively impact as well as inspire other people, because I know not everybody's story or path is kind of a straight line. And so from Appleton, Wisconsin, I graduated high school in 2016, and that's really kind of where I developed a passion for basketball. And so I went to Appleton East High School. I was an incoming freshman, just like everybody, really eager to make the varsity team. I was standing at about 5'6", probably about 140 pounds, and not to make excuses, but did not make didn't make the freshman team, or didn't make the varsity team like I hoped, and instead was on the freshman team. And so that's kind of when I would say that my mindset flipped, in terms of like, okay, I really want to take basketball seriously, because it was out of my control, but I knew that I wanted to play varsity basketball, and I had been going to games my whole life, and knew some of the seniors that were playing at the time, and so that I just wanted that to be me. And so that's really kind of when my training, or basketball training, started for me. And I think it's super important. A lot of players are really hell-bent on, I got to make this team, or got to make this team, got to make this team. Like, it really doesn't matter, and ultimately it's your coaches that are deciding, not you. And so I think it's super important that you only control what you can control, and you take that, whether you're a freshman, whether you're a sophomore, whether you're a junior, senior, doesn't matter, whatever team you get placed on. It's just important to make the most of it, and if you do have the time, just to capitalize on it, and then hopefully you can grow from there. And so, like I said, I played freshman basketball, really enjoyed it, had a good year, and so then was lucky enough to play varsity basketball my sophomore, junior, and senior year. Had some kind of unforeseen things happen where, my sophomore year, our starting point guard got hurt. He missed about half the season, and so I was lucky enough to start the remainder of that season, and then my junior and senior year as well. In the off season was when I would do a lot of the work, like most players, when they have a little bit more time. And so I was constantly just in the gym, 1-on-0, working on different moves, working on different finishes, working on different shots, and that's really where that love developed. And so I always recommend players, you don't need a trainer. I'm a trainer now, but it's not like you need me to get better. You don't need anybody to get better. All you need is a ball and a hoop, right? Or I shouldn't even say a hoop. You really just need a ball. So take the time on your own, whether it's with other people or by yourself. But I think just kind of developing that love by yourself first is a really pure thing, and it can really skyrocket your training, especially as you continue to grow and develop. And so looking back, I don't think I trained super smart. Like I said, it was a lot of just me in the gym by myself, and there was a lot of times where I should have brought a teammate. I should have been doing more one-on-one. I should have been just getting up way more catch and shoot threes, and those are things that I've kind of kept in the back of my head, thinking about the players I work with now. And so like I was talking to one of my buddies the other day, and he was like, yeah man, people just keep asking me, like, was Trent good in high school, or like, was Trent a good player, like how good is he? And I think as a trainer, you really kind of have to, or I guess I should say, you get judged by kind of your playing ability, right? And so I'm not ashamed at all to say that I've worked with so many players that are way better than me. My senior year, I averaged like 10 points a game. I played for Appleton East, and I played under Coach John Milkey, who taught me so much about the game, just minute details from footwork and finishing and defense, and just being ready to shoot every single time you catch, and different offensive things that to this day, like, I can't even believe I understood at 14 years old, just because he instilled it in us from day one. And so that's really cool to think about, and I own the world, and he had a lot to do with me still being in this gym today. But yeah, so my senior year, kind of when you get to that junior senior year, you're really thinking, like, do I play? Do I want to continue to play? Do I want to do college? What are we looking at? And so I decided to go to UW Madison, and that was more or less a decision because I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do. I had a couple D3s that were, hey, come to these camps, maybe you could play. And nothing was really for sure, partially just because I didn't have my best senior season. I wasn't a huge point per game scorer. And so I kind of chose the route to move the page. And I chose to go to UW-Madison just because they had so many different majors. It's a huge school. I'm like, okay, I can find my path. It's a reputable school. Kind of graduate there and look for my full-time job, more or less. And so my first 2 years, I took nothing but just like general classes. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I took business, I took chem, realized chem was not my thing. Realized like a lot of different things just through that, and more or less landed on psychology as a major. And it was partially because it was the classes that came most natural to me, and I really just understood or enjoyed understanding, how people think or how they make decisions, how they're motivated, things like that. And that's kind of ultimately where I set on my academic route throughout college. And so I got to college and I thought I was done. I thought I was, kind of just going to be your typical like student, more or less, where it's like, okay, I got to focus, all my energy on school. And what I quickly realized is that got really stressful, just head down, hitting the books and doing everything with that. And so I used basketball just as an outlet to get away from everything, to get away, in college you're constantly with other people, you're in big groups a lot of times, especially your freshman year, you're figuring out new friends and things like that. And so I really just continued to work out. I continued to try to get my game better, and for whatever reason, kind of in the back of my head, my motivation was like, shoot, I know I didn't have as good a high school career as I wanted, so I'm just going to keep working. And so I guess to this day, don't really know. Like, I wasn't doing it to become a intramural all-star or look good at the pickup games, outside. I really just did it because I love it and to continue to learn and grow on my own. And so a lot of those, freshman and sophomore year, I look back, I remember there was a gym in the basement at the Surf at UW that really was unused. And so I'd get up early in the mornings before school, just go work out and then kind of go on with my day. And I think about those times because even though it felt like I was doing nothing, it felt like I really didn't have a purpose for these workouts. I knew just like deep down that, like this is for a reason and I enjoy this, so let's keep hunting it. And so kind of like I alluded to, I realized, and this is probably like my sophomore year now, where I really wasn't focused so much on me anymore. Like, it didn't really matter how good I was. It didn't matter, how many threes I was hitting in a row or anything like that. It simply needed to change from like me to others. I felt like I had a lot to offer in terms of just my knowledge of the game, and I wanted to learn more about basketball training and just how I can start working with players. I kept learning online. I kept reaching out to trainers and learning through them, and then I really just dug into the film aspect. And so basically my senior year of college is when I moved back home to Appleton because COVID hit. And so I remember like prior to that, just like laying in bed thinking like, okay, what the heck am I gonna do for the rest of my life? Like, I'm about to graduate from college. I've been applying to some of these jobs, but like I just don't know what the heck I'm gonna do, because basketball is ultimately like my passion. That was what I knew I loved, but really didn't think I could make money from it or do anything with it. So COVID hit. I moved back home to Appleton, moved in with my parents, and ultimately did graduate with a degree in psych and a business minor. And I have, no regrets, obviously. I had an amazing college experience and learned a ton through that. But, part of me was still like, dang, what if I played, or what if I could have, walked onto a college team or something like that and learned that knowledge. And so I knew I had a big gap to kind of fill in terms of that knowledge void if I wanted to start working with players. And so I knew my dream was okay, I wanted to work with just one, like, can I just get one player in the gym that I can start working with? And so when I moved back home to Appleton, during COVID, I reached back out to the high school coaches that I played for, both the girls coach and the guys coach at our school, and we're just like, hey, I'm gonna be home for a couple months here. If you have any players who want to get outside and work out, I'm more than welcome to. I cleared it with my neighbor. We played on a half court in his backyard. He had like a little paved half court that I grew up playing on, and it was like, hey, you mind if I bring some people over and start working out on your court during the days? And he had no problem with it. And so Essentially, fast forward, my first two players that I worked with in Appleton were Joey LaChapelle and Emily LaChapelle. They're Joe LaChapelle's son, or son and daughter, excuse me, kids. And Joe was the girls' high school coach. So he coached for East, and I got to know him while I was playing, and so it was really, really cool to come full circle and work with his kids. He's an amazing coach himself, so I was definitely super, super nervous working with them. After I graduated, I moved back home to Appleton and started working with Emily and Joey LaChapelle. So they were the kids of the former Appleton East girls coach that essentially was coaching while I was playing, and so that's how I kind of had that connection to start. And so they weren't your average first two clients. I mean, they are and were killers. I mean, this was over 3 years ago now. I mean, Joey is going into his senior year. Super excited to watch him lead Appleton East. I mean, he's a phenomenal player, scholarship player, in my opinion. And then Emily LaChapelle just finished up her freshman year at Marquette and is going to find a new home next year. But super excited to see where she ends up, and she's going to make a coach super happy. So I got super lucky working with those two first, and it really just sparked my love for training and for kind of being on the coach's side versus the actual training side. And so our first workouts were, I always tell people, like, have you ever seen the episode of The Office where they're in the warehouse playing basketball and kind of the basement there? That's the exact same thing that we were essentially working with our first two workouts. And so I was doing outdoor workouts at my neighbor's house, as well as kind of in this warehouse that was fully carpeted. We had a duct tape 3-point line, we wheeled in a hoop, and that's kind of how we were getting to it some of those first months. And so I got super lucky, after working with Joey and Emily consistently. They would bring in friends, they would bring in teammates. Pretty soon I was working with 2 or 3 people. They were telling friends, and pretty soon that 2 was kind of closer to 20 or 30, and I got so lucky. And being fully transparent, I did everything for free at the start, and now some parents were very, very willing to pay and say, hey, you're not doing this for free, here you go. And I did take some tips more or less, but I was super fortunate that I just knew that I had to learn, and that I wanted to do this and just do it for free to start, just to even see if I liked it. And so that's something that I would definitely recommend to all people, especially maybe looking to provide a service that, hey, if you're not sure if you want to try this or start this business or provide this value, offer it for free to start. And that's a really easy way to realize if you like doing it. So if you don't, you're probably dreading doing it. And like, I think back to those sessions and I look at them no different than, and I'm so grateful that those first few clients gave me a chance, and I got really lucky to work with some extremely good area players early on in my training career. And it was weird because I knew that everybody was trying to get in the gym. We couldn't get in the gym due to COVID, and so we were doing a lot of outdoor sessions, making sure we were staying safe, but making sure we were still kind of staying ready, because nobody knew what that following year or following season was going to look like. And so kind of in the middle there, I accepted a job to doing some IT staffing down here in Madison. So I kind of had my lease and everything back here was in Madison, and so I kind of told everybody back in the Fox Valley that, hey, this training gig is going to be pretty short term here, but I'm going to pack up and move back to Madison. And so I did end up making that move. Kind of in between there, I learned or met a really cool connection by the name of Reed Ossie. I was helping a buddy move out of Minneapolis. He went to the University of St. Thomas, was hanging with him for a little bit, and I knew of Reed. He's a trainer in that area, and I was just like, something's telling me I got to just reach out to this guy and just see if I could learn from him, because I kind of had an open day where my buddy Nate was up to something. I can't remember. I think he had maybe a school or work, and I was like, I can't just sit here all day. What am I going to do? So I reached out to Reed, and he said, sure enough, yeah, come on in. We got a session at 4 and a session at 5 I could use help with. And I obviously had no idea what to expect, but I was all for it. I'm like, here's this big name trainer who worked with NBA players as well as 4th graders, and so I figured I was going to get somebody in between, but didn't really know. And I ended up, remember, just sitting in the parking lot waiting for Reed, and an all-black McLaren pulls up next to me, and out pops Andrew Wiggins. And so I guess long story short, I got to help with a workout with Andrew Wiggins that day, as well as a workout with Kerwin Walton, who plays at UNC, or played at UNC, and now South Carolina right after him. So I got to see just, essentially two of the top players in the world, work out back to back and be a part of it and help them and hear how Reed's teaching and kind of help with, different footworks and passes and different angles and things like that. And it was just, I not only was I just in awe the whole time and like shaking just out of nerves and out of just like, wow, I can't believe this is happening. But it was just looking back such a monumental step to kind of continue to build on in my training career. And so I owe Reed the absolute world. I don't know why he was so good to me, but I guess moral of the story is like it just pays to reach out. Like the worst case is somebody's going to tell you no, or worst case they don't get back to you. Like it's totally okay. I've reached out to so many trainers. Hey, could would you ever hop on a call? Or hey, I love your stuff. Any tips you'd have for an incoming trainer or something like that. It just pays to reach out, especially if you're in a niche kind of like mine. I mean, I think so many people think they need to stand out with different accolades or stand out with different degrees or things like that. And of course, all of those help. But I think at the end of the day, just who you know and the connections and the value that you're willing to provide for other people are going to take you a lot farther than anything else. And so big thanks to Reed. Ended up helping out with 3 more workouts with Wiggins and have visited him numerous times since, and it's amazing that we still have that relationship, and I really owe him the world. Fast forward, getting back to Madison, I just started working my job, and I brought up Reed because he also worked with Brad Davison. So Brad Davison had also moved back to Madison, was looking to work out, and so essentially my whole first week of my actual job, doing some IT staffing, working your typical 9 to 5, I was getting up and working out Brad Davison before essentially like probably my second, third, and fourth days on the job. Just getting before work workouts, and I feel bad for Brad. I didn't have much flexibility at that time, and I didn't even have a gym to get into, but again, I reached out to some area gyms and was lucky enough to find somebody who would rent an hour to me. And so I moved out, took the next chance, moved gyms, and quit my full-time job after 2.5 months with very little in my wallet, and said, screw it, this is my passion. I'm young, why not take the chance? And so fast forward now, essentially 2.5 years I've been in this gym now, and here we are today. And I'm lucky enough to say that I kind of went from working with one client, Emily and Joey, I guess two players in Appleton, to now in this gym we've probably had over I looked the other day, I think it was over 350 people come in on an individual session basis. So that's whether they're coming in for one session, whether they're coming in for 100 sessions. We've had 350 different people walk through that side door and trust me and trust the other amazing trainers I have here with taking their game to the next level. And so I'm super, super, super fortunate, and I feel incredibly lucky to do what I love for a living. And so I think back to the times, I think back to the 13 session days I was doing, when I was working for the other guy, or I think back to the days when I didn't have a single client, but I really put in the work. I really, really, really decided to watch like a game of film every single day. Like, okay, can we watch a game today? Can we read? I've read a ton of different sports psychology books. I was reading like 50 pages a day and watching a game every single day. Like I just kind of held myself to that standard because I knew some point I'm going to have a busy schedule where that's not going to be, I truthfully just don't have time to read 50 pages a day anymore. That's just more or less what it comes down to. And so I'm super happy of kind of the back end work that I put in to get to this point. But yeah, like I said, we're so fortunate to do individual, small group, and team sessions. Insanely fortunate to have 3 other amazing trainers who now work with me. So as you can see, we got a full court. We can do a session on one end while I'm doing a session on the other. And so we can kind of go both ways. So Emmanuel Obi, he's a Madison native, amazing guy first off, and an amazing player. He really brings a lot of player perspective to the table. I mean, he's been helping us now for over like a year, I think a year and a half now, where he's played college, he's played professionally, and he's just really, really good at connecting to different age kids through this training. And so he's been amazing to have on. And then we also have 2 other trainers they both go to Edgewood. Austin Carlson is continuing his career at Edgewood, going into his senior year. Super excited for him his last year here, and he's an amazing guy. And all three of these guys actually I started working with first, and just knew that they were going to be amazing trainers because they just really thought the game. Like their IQs, all three of them, are off the charts, and also actually OB2 did have some prior training experience as well. So Austin was the second guy who also helps us out, and third would be Isaiah. Isaiah is Isaiah is from Racine. Also plays at Edgewood though, Isaiah Wright, and he's been helping us out. Wow, I can't talk. Helping us out the last year or so as well, and he's been an amazing add-on. And so those guys now can kind of run their own sessions, and I totally recommend you getting a session in with them. They provide all different perspectives, although we teach a lot of the same concepts and bounce a lot of the same ideas off each other, so it's very similar training, but also they bring their own flair. So I'm super lucky to now have those three guys helping me out. It was extremely tough at the start, just by myself. So I need to give them the credit they deserve. And one thing I think all four of us are really good at, and it kind of alludes to what I was saying before, like we know that we're not Michael Jordan. We're not the best players. It doesn't necessarily come down to how skilled we are. It's how can we teach and explain what you want to work on and what you want to develop. We just need to be able to explain that in a digestible way. And so one thing I think I need to bring up and that I tell a lot of players is like, it's your workout, not ours. A lot of players will come to us and say, hey, whatever you got, let's get to it. I'm totally cool with that. I've done a million workouts. I'm very ready right off the top of my head to come up with a great workout that's going to work on ball handling, going to work on finishing, going to work on shooting, and everything in between. The last and kind of more important piece that I personally see is just being able to meet players where they're at. And so I don't want to have players think that I'm just going to tell them exactly what they should do or what they want to do. I want it to be player led. And so I'm very open, and I know all four of us are extremely open in terms of if you want to work on shooting, we can come up with a great shooting workout. If you want to work on just floaters, on help defenders, we can work on just exactly that. And I think that's a really big key to being a good trainer, is being able to adapt based on what players want to work on, as well as just kind of have that knowledge base to be able to just help players navigate and kind of close that gap between where they want to, or where they are right now and where they want to get to. Look back, I feel like the last 3 years of my life, I've been doing 30 to 40 hours on the court a week, and so it's pretty cool to replace kind of the job I had or the job I thought I was going to have, kind of with basketball training. And what I'm slowly realizing is it's not easy, as much as I love it. 40 hours on your feet a week, running around, chasing balls, guarding, coming up with workouts, getting back to emails, texts, everything in between has been a lot. And so it's been great. It's been great to just learn how to navigate, and I feel like I've learned so much. I learned how to put together a website. I learned how to take care of insurance. We pay insurance here. I figured out how to, negotiate deals in terms of rent. I learned how to, start an LLC and everything in between. There's so much to it, and I think it's important to kind of think about that. From a customer perspective, it's put a lot of perspective for me. When I go get my haircut now, I'm no longer thinking how cheap can I get this? I'm thinking about, okay, they got to pay for a seat in this barbershop. They got a website. They got a lot of different things that are all these added expenses that are kind of on that back end. Is the last probably 6 months here, I've really been thinking man, I know I can't do what I'm doing right now forever. And so, I guess whether it's a blessing or a curse, unfortunately, I got the news the other day that this gym is no longer, going to be viable starting in August. And so, essentially, the church is basically going to move all their stuff in here. They're going to have masses in here, all this stuff, because they got to renovate the church. And then after the church is renovated, they're going to take all their stuff, put it back, and then they got to renovate this parish center. And so I don't know all the details behind it. I do know that this has been in the works for a long time. When I first moved in, they told me about 1.5 years. It's been closer to 2.5 years than 1.5. And so I've essentially kind of prolonged my stay because everything's been pushed back. But like I said, I owe them the world. and it's weird. Like I'm gonna learn how to navigate essentially without a gym, and so I guess that's kind of got me thinking next steps, and it's kind of why I wanted to bring this up, because I know that I'm not going to be able to tell every person that's worked with me, or get to tell everybody in person even, that hey, this gym's no longer viable, and who knows what training is going to look like. And so I wanted to just first off say thank you to everyone, and I'm really excited to kind of take those next steps. And just try to develop a little bit more sustainable work-life balance for me. Just because so much of my day, I think about today, my first session was at 7:30 a.m. And so right now we're recording this, it's 7:30 p.m. I just got off the court, and essentially within those, 12 hours, 7:30 to 7:30, I had 30-minute drive to a camp and a 30-minute drive back to this gym. Those were essentially my hour off, and so I had 9 sessions today, and that was that. And so, like, as you can imagine, doing that every single day, 5-6 days a week, takes a big toll. And now obviously when we don't have this gym, I'm not going to be able to do that to begin with, but I want to kind of start slowly developing a way I can continue to provide value, but be more sustainable, not only on my body, but also on my mind. And so one of the big things that I want to start navigating towards is mental performance training. And so I really struggled with it when I played, and I know a lot of players. I've had different conversations with players, and also just a lot of my friends have been open with me about it as well, that they just really struggled with the mental part of the game. And so whether we realize it or not, there's kind of 2 games going on at once. It's obviously the physical game, where we're working on the X's and O's, the between cross, the actual physical skills that we work on a lot in the gym, and then there's that game going on in between our own ears. And so I want to really help players and kind of use my psychology background as well as what I know about the game to further help players kind of deal with some of that performance anxiety, and continue to kind of work past some of those fears. And so I think one of the biggest keys is just learning that it's there, that just having the awareness that whether I'm in 4th grade or whether I'm LeBron James, like, nerves are a thing, anxiety is a real thing, right? Where if the game's tied and you get fouled and you're on the free throw line, I guarantee that you're probably, again, regardless of who you are, going to have that thought in the back of your head, like, just don't miss, right? That's just a natural reaction to just, and kind of human nature to who we are. And so a lot of those thoughts we can't control. And I owe Lucas Jaden just kind of the biggest shout out here. He came in and helped with us, helped with my team my senior year at Appleton East, and now has continued to work with just amazing clients. I know he's worked with some MLB teams, some professional, some other pro teams, as well as some college teams in there as well. But he essentially really helped me learn not only that, hey, the mental game is probably just as important, if not more important than the physical game, as well as he probably most importantly taught me about the twin thieves. And so the twin thieves are essentially something that are always there, and kind of that little voice in the back of our head that are really just trying to rob us of our joy. And so the twin thieves are the fear of judgment and the fear of failure. And so if you think about, like, if you're nervous to shoot a corner 3, you're probably nervous to miss it, or you're probably nervous because, oh, what is so-and-so going to think if I miss it, right? And so just being able to work through those and understand that those are forever present, and just laugh at those, right? So if I'm in the corner, I'm wide open, I got to know that, okay, you know what, I'm just catch and I'm going up. I'm trusting my training. Yeah, especially in a big game, I might have that split second, oh, don't shoot it, don't miss. But we ultimately have to just trust that training and work through that. And there's a lot of tools that I'm continuing to learn about, and I've learned about, that I essentially want to equip players with to work on overcoming those twin thieves, the fear of failure and the fear of judgment. The next big thing is I want to start a podcast, and I want to not only get different trainers on and different basketball minds in terms of the connections that I've made, but also just get everybody, like get different people on in terms of everybody has their own story. I realize that at 25, my story in the last 4 years is super unique. Like, when I tell people, hey, I do basketball training for a living, everybody kind of like, what? Like, what do you mean? What does that look like? And I want ultimately, more people to tell their story, because there's a lot out there, and there's a lot of people with different interests, and a lot of people providing value in a lot of different ways. And so I look forward to those conversations, and just hope you, the audience, can take something away from those. I feel like I provide great value for the players I work with now. I mean, I've gotten to work with third graders. I've gotten to work with third grade all the way up to overseas professionals, every level of Division One, or excuse me, every level of college, Division One, D2, D3, JUCO, NAI, all that stuff, as well as like beyond. So I mean, I've even worked with some people who are just trying to stay in shape. So I've worked with 33-year-olds. I've worked with a lawyer. I worked with a 60-year-old who had cancer and was just trying to stay in shape. Like, I mean, the people I've met through training is ridiculous. And I've really embraced kind of those different levels, and I feel like I can teach the game to absolutely anybody. And so I look forward to what's to come. I'm super lucky, like I said, to be doing this now, and to hopefully continue doing this wherever that may be, although it's not going to be in this gym. We'll make sure we get a big open gym, and just so we can celebrate one last time in here, just because I think it's so surreal. I remember when I moved in the first day, like, man, I don't know if anybody's going to come in here. Like, I was like, I know we got a little full court, but, it's not the newest gym, not the nicest gym, but it, hey, now that we got the floor resurfaced, right? But again, super lucky to use this space, and I'm extremely sad it's going, but I really look forward to what's to come, and appreciate everybody rocking with me. So thank you so much.